Imagine being betrayed by your own family, sold into slavery, thrown into prison for something you didn't do. Yet somehow, you rise to power and save nations. Sounds like a movie, right? Well, this actually happened to Joseph. But how did he go from the pit to the palace? Let's dive into one of the most incredible stories of faith and perseverance in the Bible. Joseph's journey is one of the most dramatic and inspiring stories ever. It's a story of betrayal, hardship, and redemption, but also one of God's unseen hand working behind every circumstance. From being his father's favorite son, to being sold as a slave, to eventually becoming the second most powerful person in Egypt, Joseph's life is full of twists and turns. But through it all, one thing remained constant. God had a purpose, even when Joseph couldn't see it. Stick around, because we're about to explore how Joseph overcame adversity and how God's providence played a role in every step. Joseph's story begins with a problem that many of us can relate to: family conflict. He was his father's favorite son, which made his brothers hate him. I mean, who wouldn't be jealous if your sibling got all the attention? But Joseph didn't just get the love. He got a special coat, an elaborate, beautiful, multicolored coat that showed favoritism, unlike the work garments worn by Joseph's brothers. This made his brothers even more bitter. But then, things take a turn, for the worse. Joseph starts having dreams. Not just ordinary dreams, but dreams that suggest he's going to rule over his brothers one day. As you can imagine, this doesn't sit well with them. They already can't stand him, and now he's rubbing salt in the wound with these dreams of power. So, what do? They plot to get rid of him. One day, when Joseph was sent to check on his brothers, they saw him from a distance and decided it was time to act. They didn't just want to scare him, they wanted him gone. First, they threw him into a deep, dry well. They left him there with no water, no food, just alone. You can imagine how Joseph must have felt. He probably thought this was it. His life was over. But here's where the first glimpse of God's providence shows up. Instead of killing Joseph, one brother, Reuben, suggests they sell him to some passing traders. So, they do. Joseph is taken to Egypt and sold as a slave to a man named Potiphar. It seems like things have gone from bad to worse, right? But let's pause and think. More times than not, we often can't see the outcome at any given moment, or the why behind a situation. And in that moment, Joseph probably couldn't see what plan God had working behind the scenes. Why would God send Joseph to Egypt? That's where the rest of this story will unfold. Now, Joseph's story doesn't just stop at being sold into slavery. While working for Potiphar, Joseph quickly gains the man's trust and rises to a position of authority. But once again, things take a sharp turn when Potiphar's wife tries to seduce him. Joseph, being a man of integrity, refuses. But when she falsely accuses him of trying to assault her, Joseph is thrown into prison. I would say it must seem like Joseph is being punished for being the good guy and doing everything right. But again, God's providence is at work. One of the gifts God gave to Joseph was his ability to interpret dreams. While in prison, instead of feeling sorry for himself, he used that gift by helping other prisoners with interpreting their dreams. One of those prisoners just happens to be the cupbearer to the king, Pharaoh himself. Joseph helps him interpret his dream, and the cupbearer promises to remember him when he's released. Time passes, and sure enough, Pharaoh has a troubling dream. No one can interpret it, but the cupbearer remembers Joseph. Joseph is brought before Pharaoh, and he interprets the dream, predicting 7 years of abundance, followed by 7 years of famine. Pharaoh, impressed with Joseph's wisdom, not only pardons him but makes him second in command over all of Egypt. From the pit to the palace, Joseph's journey is nothing short of a miracle. Joseph's story is a powerful reminder that no matter how bad things seem, God is always working behind the scenes. His story teaches us that what might feel like a setback could be a setup for something greater. Every betrayal, every hardship, and every injustice Joseph faced was part of a larger plan. We know that Joseph's story didn't end there. When famine strikes, he is able to save not just Egypt, but also his family, showing that God's purpose always prevails. So, the next time life feels like it's throwing you into a pit, remember Joseph. His faith, perseverance, and trust in God's plan ultimately turned his darkest moments into his greatest triumphs. If you found Joseph's story inspiring, be sure to check out our next video on how faith in tough times can change everything. Thanks for listening, and remember to click like and subscribe.